Welcome to the Wingman Men's Moment podcast with Randy Ferreira and Pastor Jay Dennis. We are co-founders of Wingman Nation and City Central Church in Lakeland, Florida. We are Christian men. We're husbands, fathers, and grandfathers who have a passion to help men become greater husbands, better dads, and more godly and Christ-like men. Today, we're looking at part 2 of our podcast on Pharaoh, there's a frog in our oven. Let's look at number 3. Consider life's most dangerous word. Pharaoh had had it with the frogs. Enough. The croaking has got to stop. Call frog busters. Frog be gone. But listen to Exodus 8 through 10. Then Pharaoh summoned Moses and Aaron and begged, plead with the Lord to take the frogs away from me and my people. I will let your people go so they can offer sacrifices to the Lord. You set the time, Moses replied. Tell me when you want me to pray for you, your officials and your people. Then you and your houses will be rid of the frogs. They will remain only in the Nile River. Do it tomorrow, Pharaoh said. All right, Moses replied, it will be as you have said. Then you will know that there is no one like the Lord our God. Now, there is one word we want to underline, highlight, and we want to shine the light on in verse 10. It is the word tomorrow. Pharaoh knew that only the Lord could help. You must come to that point in your life. Are you desperate enough to let God do what only He can do in your life? Notice it says He called. In other words, it was His move. Yeah. Nothing, absolutely nothing would change until Pharaoh decided that he wanted things to change. Years ago, Fred Smith, who was the founder of FedEx, made this statement. He said, you are the way you are because that's the way you want to be. If you really wanted to be any different, you would be in the process of changing right now. I talked with someone this week, and they said, that's just the way I am. And I said, well, Jesus died on the cross and rose from the dead, so you wouldn't have to be the way you are. That He can change you. But like you said earlier, you got to want to change.
You got to let Him in.
You got to let Him in. So notice He says, remove the frogs. Pharaoh was bargaining with God. If only you will do this, then I will do that. As someone has said, your arms are too short to box with God. Many have tried to bargain with God. Oh, Lord, if you'll just get me out of this mess, I'll go to church, I'll tithe, I'll even serve in some way. And then the question came to Pharaoh, when do you want the frogs to be gone? Verse 9 says, you set the time. Tell me what you want me to pray and when you want me to pray for you. So when do you want things to change, Pharaoh? When will the turning point be? When will you turn control of your life over to the Lord? Verse 10, do it tomorrow. Do it tomorrow. Not right now. I don't want to jump into anything, pardon the pun, as we speak about frogs. He wanted more time. Pharaoh wanted to be in control of his life just one more day. So as one pastor put it, one more night with the frogs when he didn't have to.
Yeah, he didn't have to.
Yeah.
And the other thing I was thinking, maybe he was also testing God.
Right.
He knew God was in control, but he said, well, let me just take one more test to see if I'm in control or He's in control.
Exactly.
And sometimes we do that as well,
We
in
bargain with
life.
God.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep. And the issue is when we say yes to God, that's the real issue. Tomorrow, He could have instant relief and release from these frogs and the problem wiped away. No, just one more night with the frogs, you say? That's kind of ridiculous. Yeah. But we don't even want an itsy-bitsy spider in our house, let alone frogs, not. Right? So, but let's take the word tomorrow and apply it to some specific areas in our lives, and we'll find it's just as ridiculous sometimes, even dangerous when we do that tomorrow thing. So number one, the first thing is that I'll give my heart to Jesus tomorrow, not now. You've heard that. You hear that a lot. I was experiencing that with some people in my family.
Yes.
And so, just one more day of not having God in your life, just one more night of no peace and not knowing that you're going to heaven.
Yes.
So it's baffling, especially, people that have waited and waited. They've already experienced the consequences that God has put upon them, but they want that one more day of no joy, of sins forever, supposedly. So
unimaginable.
It is one more day separated from God, taking a chance with their soul that they don't hurry up, they could die and then go to hell.
Right.
So just one more night of life without Jesus, and just one more day of keeping your name out of the Lamb's Book of Life, as we just said. So most tomorrows never come, because the next day comes and they put it off again and again and again.
It's just hard to imagine within that context of the frogs to say, I just want to be lost one more night.
Yeah.
I want to be without God one more night.
But the power of Satan's temptation is so strong, and when he's there, he blinds us.
Well, he does.
And you don't see what you're supposed to see because he's there still putting those blinders on.
That's right.
And when you finally pull those blinders away, you see God's light, and then they take the dive.
Exactly. I can't tell you the number of people who have said to me, I cannot believe I waited this long to receive Jesus. Yeah. I can't believe that I waited this long to know him. And but people do it every day. Yeah. They do it all the time.
We can't look back.
We can't. Number 2 is I'll get baptized tomorrow. It's too inconvenient today. I need just one more day of not obeying Jesus' first command. One more day until you let the world know that you're on Jesus' side. If you have been saved, get baptized as soon as you can. Jesus walked over 70 miles to get baptized. It's a big deal. And if you're saying about baptism, not today, maybe tomorrow, maybe next Sunday, why would you wait to obey God in this first command that he gives to a Christian? Number 3 is I'll forgive him or her tomorrow. Just one more day of bitterness, unforgiveness, resentment, holding a grudge. One more day of not communicating with that loved one or friend. The longer you hold on to forgiveness, the worse it gets.
Right.
Like the frogs, you have to allow God to remove your bitterness. You have to choose it. Don't wait until you feel it. If you wait till you feel it, you'll never do it. Yeah. So you just act on it and do the right thing.
Number 4 is I'll get back in God's will tomorrow. We'll wait one more day tomorrow. So you could confess that sin, repent of it, and experience God's amazing forgiveness right now. But you could sense his presence again in your life. But no, you could experience God. You could have peace and joy in your life and come back to him.
That's right.
If you truly are saved, of course, which is a whole nother podcast topic.
Right.
And out of God's will, but you'll be, you'll be miserable.
Yes.
So if not, you never really got saved to begin with, as I just mentioned.
And that's a good point.
That's a critical point that we really should do a podcast on that.
We should.
I think people are always thinking, am I really saved? Am I not saved? Should I? I think that would be good. Number 5 is I will witness to my unsaved loved ones and friends tomorrow. That's a tough one because, it's hard to do that. It's hard to witness, and it's hard to talk to people about God. But
one of the greatest qualities I see in you, even with your family, is that you're passionate about making sure they're saved. And God has honored that through the years as you have loved them, as you have shared with them, and many of them have come to Christ. And why would we wait? And I'm glad we're dealing with this one in particular.
Yeah, and sometimes you're worried about you don't want to offend him or her, and you're allowing someone, but you're really allowing someone to go to hell every day. You don't want to offend them, so that's probably the biggest offense ever by waiting. But we don't see that each day they could die and go to hell, right? It's one of those things you don't really think about. I guess the statistic is a lost person dies every 17 seconds.
Wow.
And goes to hell, which is huge when you think about that. And each day their heart could grow harder to the things of God as well. And I've actually seen that, and you have too.
Yes.
People get harder and harder, and that's why most come to Christ. Do so before the age of 13, and after that, that's the largest sector of time frame.
It is.
But imagine saying I'll make him or her spend one more day without hearing the greatest news they've ever heard in their life. I mean,
right. And if we're concerned that we're going to offend them, imagine if one day they're in hell and they think, why didn't you offend me? Why didn't you tell me about this? There's no excuse.
But the thing is, we really have to develop a relationship with people first. And I know that takes more time, but don't take the time to not develop. Start developing those relationships as soon as you meet people, as soon as you feel comfortable. And then, people start trusting you, and then boom, hit them with, hey, do you know where you're going?
Exactly. The book of Acts shows us that the gospel moves along the lines of relationships. And like you said, you build a relationship, you get the, influence, and the influence takes time. But you build that influence by doing the right thing, by loving them, by spending time with them. There's no substitute for that.
And your actions are going to show them.
Of course.
Exactly, that you're a man of God or woman of God. So
no doubt about it. Well, number 6 is I'll encourage him or her tomorrow. Your encouragement, your words to someone can make all the difference. Maybe a word of appreciation or affirmation, a call, a text, an email, a note, a card, a visit. Some kind of expression of love could make all the difference in that person's life. People are dying emotionally all around us. They're hurting. They're discouraged. They want to know, does anybody really care about me? And when you have the opportunity to encourage and don't take it, that person lives one more day with the frogs.
Yep.
And God could use you to help remove those frogs, but when we don't encourage, we remove that opportunity. When God puts someone on your heart or mind, don't put off encouraging him or her. Do it that moment.
Yes, because we don't know what people are going through at that specific time in their life. We talked about that this morning.
We did.
A friend of ours was going through and lost their daughter, a 31-year-old daughter, and we had no idea. It happened so quickly.
Yeah.
And so he's a car salesman, so I was thinking about calling him and harassing him about a car, and I didn't. And thank God I didn't, because he was going through that time. And so, but be encouraging all the time, and then we wouldn't have to worry about
We never know,
that.
do we?
We don't.
We never know. Here's one. I'll find a church home tomorrow. Now, don't get us wrong. You need to seek out God's will for a church to join. But joining is vitally important to your spiritual life. And by the way, you're not going to find a perfect church. And if you do, please don't join it, because you're going to ruin it for everybody else. The reason joining a church is such a big deal is that you're making a commitment there to serve God, to make yourself part of that family, to make yourself accountable for spiritual things. In a culture that says no commitment and no longer believes in joining the church, we say be committed anyway.
Yep.
Join that church. So, how do you deal with the frogs? Take the frogs to God. Act on what God has said in his word. Get saved. Get baptized. Forgive now. Get right with God. Share Christ with your loved one or friend. Encourage someone now, and join the church and get involved. Don't wait. There's a wonderful story that came out of a book that you're going to be sharing. This is good, really good.
So this is in the Caine Mutiny. We're told about Willie Key, who was aboard a minesweeper when he received word from his father that he had an incurable disease that would soon claim his life. He wrote a letter to his son, and in his letter, the father offered this advice to him: "There is nothing more precious than time. Wasted hours destroy your life just as surely as the beginning as is the end.
Right.
Religion, I'm afraid, I haven't given you much, not having had much myself. But I think, after all, I will mail you a Bible before I go into the hospital. Get familiar with the words. You'll never regret it. I came to the Bible as I did to everything else in life too late. Think of me, and if what I might have been, for my sake, for the sake of the father who took the wrong turns, take the right ones. Goodbye, my son. Be a man, Dad.
Wow. How sad is that? So don't wait till tomorrow. Now listen to Exodus 8:13 and 14, and we'll finish this up. And the Lord did just what Moses had predicted. The frogs in the houses, the courtyards, and the fields all died. The Egyptians piled them into great heaps, and a terrible stench filled the land. But when Pharaoh saw that relief had come, he became stubborn. He refused to listen to Moses and Aaron, just as the Lord had predicted. So here is the bottom line. This is what we get from these verses. Life without God stinks. Life without God stinks. So do something about it. Not tomorrow, but today. Everything can change. The only sure thing you've got and I've got is right now.
Yes.
We're not promised anything else. Thank you so much for listening to our podcast. And as you listen to this, if you take this away, don't wait till tomorrow to do what God says to do today. We want you to share this with other men. We want you to share this with your family. Tell other people about our podcast, because this will help you to grow spiritually. So take the time to listen and, more importantly, to act on what you've heard.
Hop on it right now.
Hop on it. Excellent. Excellent. Well, until the next time.
Wingman out.